Welcome to the official Hold This L show. I'm your host, Jump Mozzie. And today we're going to talk about OJ. Now, with the passing of OJ Simpson, I'm trying to figure out why am I today years old when I found out about this. So I'm going to let Craig Facts speak on it on the 5150 show and a little snippet of this documentary that talks about it, because this is crazy. You know, the whole time I've been thinking OJ just got away with something, but in fact, somebody else really did it.
You want to know? I found out some shit about the OJ case 2 days ago that I bet y'all don't even know.
Give it to me.
Do you know who Glenn Rogers is?
He lived.
Glenn Rogers, better known as the cross-country killer, was Nicole Brown Simpson's handyman.
What do you mean?
He was her handyman was a serial killer. He was convicted. He killed 4 blondes. He was convicted of killing 4 blondes. That was his thing. He was from Ohio. He was her handyman, which means he was at her house a couple times a week.
What the fuck?
And they never brought that shit up in the media.
And see, this is why I have a hard time believing anything that's put out on the media, because they're biased. They put out what they want you to see. And it's hard for me to believe things that come out of there because someone's controlling what's put out to the public. And when you know that for a fact and you see things like that, it makes you wonder, like, what else are they holding from us and what else do they want you to see? Because they only put out what they want you to see.
His brother,
that one. I've seen that
his
one.
brother told the police, my brother murdered Nicole Brown Simpson. He admitted to me he murdered her, and he actually admitted to murdering her. But the narrative was already spun, and they were making so many billions of dollars selling this false narrative about OJ at the time that they weren't interested in anything but OJ slander.
I'm in my mother's house at this time, and they're already looking for Glenn. The phone rings, and I talked to him, and he asked me, so guess who I'm partying with? Nicole Simpson. Nobody knew who that was. I thought, well, who's that? Bart Simpson's sister? I mean, just joking. He said, no, that's when he told me that was O.J. Simpson's wife. Actually, what he told me, he says, they got money, they're well off, and I'm taking her down.
And then I saw pictures of her, and I said, that's who Glenn was telling me about.
Detectives from the Los Angeles Police Department sought and obtained a warrant for the arrest of O.J. Simpson, charging him with the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Lyle Goldman.
I read how the L.A. District Attorney charged O.J. with the murders. I believed my brother was involved, but who in the hell was going to listen to me? Meanwhile, investigators for the defense found signs that pointed in Glenn's direction.
Get that French toast out of here.
The most significant witness in the whole case was Tom Lang. Lived down the street. He came up to this corner, started to walk across the street, gave a verbal command to his dog, and he spotted Nicole Simpson. He locked eyes, as his words, he locked eyes with her, and then went that way. He also noticed a man in an angry stance right in front of her gate, and he described that person as either white, Asian, or Hispanic, but definitely not African American. He saw a white Ford F-350 vehicle parked in the street.
Letters and pay stubs show that Glenn was living in Hollywood and working for a company fixing houses and painting across the city. As a painter, Glenn had access to a white pickup truck, like the one seen at Nicole's place. And there were more clues tying Glenn to the murders.
We felt throughout the criminal case and to this day that killer came from the world of Faye Resnick. Faye Resnick was a friend of Nicole's. Faye Resnick was a drug user, a drug abuser, a drug addict that had gone into treatment. She hung with people from a very dark world.
Glenn told me that he had set up Faye Redmond and Nicole Simpson, and they met him at a Van Nuys nightclub. He set him up to rob them. Whether or not he was going to kill them or not, I don't know. He expected just the 2 girls to be there. But I guess that Ron Goldman showed up.
But there's other things that happened as well that I had no idea about that they didn't talk about in the media. OJ was on a plane to Chicago at a time when Nicole was still alive and on a phone call with her mother. But they sealed the phone records for 75 years. So we can't see the actual phone records proving, you know what I'm saying, that he was on a flight to Chicago and she was on a phone call with her mother. Then the police were caught trying to change the time of the murder. They tried to change the murder to 10:15, and the murder happened a lot later than that because they were trying to make the murder occur at a time when they knew OJ would be in town. Okay, autopsy. I didn't know this part. They make it seem like when they were murdered that somebody just stabbed them up.
No, it was like
that wasn't how the murder took place. They had torture cuts on their body, which means somebody cut them in places where they could bleed out and tortured them before they actually slit their throat. And a lot of people have the Colombian necktie thing as well. I don't know if that's true because I haven't seen the photos, but if somebody is seasoned enough as a killer to cut you to where it could torture you, meaning if you move you'll bleed out more, both of them had torture cuts. Then on top of that, the restaurant that Goldman worked at, a few of his co-workers were murdered the same way.
Bullshit?
Before he got murdered. And it was a drug hangout for cartel members, like Colombian cartel members. So there's a lot of stuff that they didn't talk about in the case. The motherfucker who did this was this is what they do for money. This ain't no, you know what I'm saying? This is what they do for money. Then on top of that, she had a dog, an Akita. Akitas are very aggressive attack dogs. The dogs didn't bark. So that means the dogs were familiar with whoever committed the murder. If a fucking serial killer was her handyman, that means he was around the dog all the time.
And then you add the fact that the courts, the DA's office and the sheriff's office or whoever suppresses evidence or keeps evidence from coming out in court for the juries to see. That plays a huge role on things. So when a lot of evidence that's held back that can't be put on people that's deciding someone's fate, that's a tough one to swallow. That's why it's hard for me to. That's why it's hard for me to trust the system. It's hard for me to trust the media. You know, they're all controlled in some sense. So
they're well off, and I'm taking her down. Authorities ignored clues leading to my brother, and it would be years before Glenn came back to that story.
Glenn Rogers explained to me that he had parked his white pickup truck, a Ford pickup truck, on a side street right by the side of the condo.
If O.J. Simpson told me I did it, I would want to know how. You got to explain to me how you did this in less than 6 minutes and got rid of the weapon, the clothes, the bloody clothes. How did you do this? Impossible.
Then I watched some shit the other day. You got to watch when you get to the crib, Corey. After he was found innocent, I don't know if y'all remember, OJ did a 3-hour documentary where he went over all the evidence in the case, himself, and walked you through it, where they found it in the crib. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was weird to see him in this state because as a 41-year-old man now, I now see, all that nigga had was really his reputation. So even though he knew he didn't do it, he was still trying to salvage his reputation because he was, I would say he was naive enough to think that people wanted the truth. They didn't give a fuck about the truth. They just cared about the story.